Hey, this is Mike and Tom with the Muscle and Speed podcast. We're here to talk about our favorite car movies, TV shows, music, and workouts, wheeling, whatever else comes to our mind. We're going to be posting these up once a week. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube at Muscle and Speed. We also have a website, www.muscleandspeed.com, where we'll eventually be selling some merch. Our goal here is to share our passion for all these things with the people who feel the same way. And we're back. Mike and Tom with Muscle and Speed for episode 2. Let's talk about our workouts, man.
Good workouts.
Mostly. I think we're still weak where we're weak and strong where we're strong.
Well put.
And nothing's really changed.
Exactly. We're 40.
We're 40.
Actually, I'm 41.
Well, I will be soon. So Saturday we went down. We hit the chest. I big talked our last podcast. I was going to try a PR at 405. That didn't work. That didn't happen.
That's all right.
You ever have those times you go to the gym and the energy level just isn't there?
Uh-huh.
It just isn't. Like, you don't feel sick and you don't feel off, but when you grab the bar, you put the weight on, you grab the bar, there's no strength in your grip. It just feels wrong.
I hear you.
Well, that's how I felt Saturday. And when I worked my way up to 315 on flat and it barely went up once, I went and put my little gloves on that people love to make fun of. And tried it again and got 4 more reps. And then I said, nope, we're not even going to go above this.
Today.
Not today.
Not today.
We put the slingshot on, and then I repped out at 315 and got some good reps in. That thing is fantastic. But then we went through our workout, and it was pretty standard. Everything else was okay.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know, I don't know if we should be pushing harder at other exercises. But I know that even if flat doesn't go well, I'm never really pushing as hard on the other sets. Does that make sense?
What do you mean? When you're anything non-flat? Incline? What?
Yeah. Like, we do incline dumbbells. If I have a bad day on flat, incline dumbbells we're using what? What were we using, 100 pounds?
Hundreds.
It wasn't easy, but it wasn't that hard.
Right.
I'm not at risk of getting it one time.
Well.
So is it time to move up there? Is it time to push it harder on incline? Maybe,
Try it.
We should try it. So that was chest in a nutshell for me. I had a low level of energy and I got through the workout. It kind of came and went.
At least you got one.
We got in and we got some work done. And I know you're kind of there anyway with chest because of your injury, that it's just a matter of getting in, getting work done. It's not as good as it was or probably never will be again.
No.
Yeah. And we buzzed through that. So then legs.
Shoulders. Oh, we did legs next.
We did legs on Sunday. That went well, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, it seems like, or I feel like we go for it on leg press because to me that's a fairly safe exercise. Like, you can load it up, and if you can't get it, it hits the stops and you got to crawl out from under there, which happened to me when?
A month ago?
About a month ago.
Yeah.
You can't get it. It hits the stops. You crawl out from under it. You peel some weight off, and you're good to go. To me, that's a lot less drama and risk than when you're squatting. And so I do tend to, I don't want to say take it easy squatting, but I'm definitely not pushing the way I'm pushing if we're leg pressing, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Renzel will throw it out there. We were doing sets with 315. I thought was pretty easy.
Comfortable. Safe.
Yeah. I mean, if you were in there judging it, I'm sure we didn't get quite low enough or whatever. But that isn't really, if that's even true. And I was trying to look because my wife was taking pictures. She didn't take video, but she was taking pictures, and I was trying to look. on any of them if it looked like we were getting pretty deep, and it did. But I'll say this confidently, I think at 315 we could almost sit on the floor and stand back up. It's not that difficult. So it's probably actually time to move up there too. Calf raises, that wasn't bad.
Nope.
What were you doing there? Like 450. You know, I wasn't looking at your reps, so I was doing sets of like 7 and 8.
Same.
And it wasn't bad.
No.
So, yeah. That's kind of, you know, then we do the leg extension, leg curl, seated leg curl. And that's fine. That's usually just a burnout. It works well. And then, we move on.
Legs.
That was legs. We move on. So then Tuesday we hit, shoulders and triceps. That's also on our social media. I probably won't post these workouts every single time. I'm just trying to get some content out there and give people an idea of what we're doing. And, you know, just for that. And we are getting some likes on there, and we're getting new people onto our social media. And, that part of it's going well. But if it's lame, let me know. We did have a request on our podcast on YouTube. We got a comment asking about video of our lifts. And so there's an extremely brief video of me shoulder pressing the 90-pound dumbbells. And that was because my wife started taking some pictures, and then she tried to video as I was finishing my set. And so it's only like 5 seconds long. But he just wanted to see our range of motion, what we're doing. You know, he contacts me. He doesn't work out right now. He's thinking about it. He's a little bit older too. And he's just looking at that. Not that we're the best examples.
No.
But what the hell? You ask me a question, I'll answer it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think shoulders and triceps went pretty well. And then, you know, it's just like chest day. We diverge. You have an injury, so your chest day doesn't go well. It usually does for me, or at least goes okay. We diverge again on back day.
Deadlifts.
That's the man's workout, and apparently I'm not very manly.
Old sports injury.
I died at 315. I tried to pull it, got it up near my knees. Couldn't get it. I held it there, and I tried to, like, reef it up, basically. I tried to, like, pull with my arms, because in all seriousness, we bent over row 315 usually. I didn't on back day. But
right. But normally.
But normally we would. And so I kind of pulled it up with my arms a little bit, and then I tried to stand up with it, and my back didn't like that. Not one bit. And I knew. You were like, well, you're going to drop down and do another set? And I said, nope, I'm done. And I was on my knees on the floor trying to stretch my back out.
Yeah, it didn't look good.
But, you know, I tried to be a trooper. I didn't do any more. Well, that's not exactly how it occurred. I heard it there, but I made it worse. We did a set of bent over row at 225. That went fine. I put 275 on. That didn't feel quite right at 315. And I heard it worse there.
That's when you stopped.
That's when I stopped, and I said, no, back's done for me. I did do some lat pull downs, but I figured pulling and stretching my back out would probably be helpful with that exercise, and it was. Went a little lighter. It was fine. And I actually think trying to tough it out through the workout helped. I think that's why I didn't have as much pain after the workout and then later. So, yeah.
Yeah. Then we did some bicep.
Yeah, I have tiny biceps. I don't want to talk about it. We did some preacher curls and then a couple of isolation curls, a couple of different ones, some seated curls. That's all right, man. That's just the shot glass.
That was almost all Colby's.
Almost. But yeah, we got through that. That was our week. We're going to start again Saturday. If I feel good, I'll try more. If I don't, I'll rep out 315 with the slingshot.
You'll
and call
get there.
it good.
Wait, Saturday's your birthday.
It is. It is. I'm turning.
4 plates while you're 40.
That was the goal. That was the goal.
We should go Friday.
I won't get it. You know, it sucks because what happened was we had been working out again for like 3 months, and I benched 395 right before I went on vacation. And it was, what actually happened was we quit working out a week before I went on vacation. I went on vacation, and then when I got back, we didn't get back in the gym right away for like a week or two. And so it ended up being like 5 weeks since we lifted. We went back in, and
that's a long time.
It's a long time. We didn't lose a lot, but we lost enough. And unfortunately, I went from knocking on the door to kind of being middle of the way where I was. And so a little disappointing, but
at least we're back.
We're back. So that's enough of that. That was our lifting for the week. It sucked, and then it was good, and then it sucked. So we'll try again next week. All right. Street Outlaws. Monza wrecked that gorgeous split bumper Camaro.
How did he manage that?
He was racing Chuck. He lost. Chuck hit his brakes. Monza started to hit his brakes, and he passed Chuck. He wasn't slowing down. I don't know if his chutes didn't deploy. I'd have to look at the video again, but he ends up going past Chuck and then sliding sideways in front of him and hitting the curb. And when he hit the curb, it bounced and, well, you know. He tumbled. And that's a lot of beautiful car to go crashing into the weeds and the trees. You see broken carbon fiber body parts. That looks really expensive. Really expensive. He came out and he said the only thing that hurt was his balls. No brakes. He wasn't dizzy. Walked out. It just said his balls hurt. So good for him. He spent his money in the right spots. It's funny though on that show, and you and I were kind of talking about that. I don't know if it was at the gym. They make themselves out to be just regular Joes, right? In fact, one of them, his name is Joe.
There's pretty serious budgets there.
I mean, I've looked just in my own curiosity at just forget the car, okay? We could talk about what it takes to buy a car like that, back halved with a cage certified to 8 seconds or less, but the engine alone in those cars, when you make that much horsepower, I mean, go on eBay right now. You're listening to this. Go on eBay right now. Look up the cheapest thing you could get would be a big block Chevy. If we're talking about real horsepower, you want a stroked out big block Chevy at 800 horsepower or 900 horsepower. They're $20,000. These guys make $3,000.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you don't even advertise engines like that. You go find that shop, and he's just going to tell you, this is what you're going to have to pay me to have this. And
tens of thousands.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly, my personal opinion is most of them got 30, 40 grand wrapped up in the engine at least. And Doc, who drives the 70 Monte Carlo, the dark blue one, his motor is over 700 cubic inches. It isn't even really assigned to a manufacturer. Mountain Engines makes it. And it's over 700 cubic inches. I can't imagine what that costs.
Yeah.
And that guy's running 3 kits of nitrous now. He's rebuilding that engine every other weekend. That's why everyone's going away from nitrous. It just eats rings.
Yeah, nothing lives on that.
No, it's awesome. God bless the guys who do it. Speaking of Doc, he hit the curb again. He's good at that. His car, it goes back to that. people think those things are just these super expensive rigs that go straight down the track and you put it in first and floor it and there's so much more involved than that. In fact, looking at Chuck and Monza's race, his car was all over the place. And in fact, a couple times that night, because they're racing on asphalt, they're all over the place. And that brings us to Murder Nova.
He's going to get it tuned up?
He's got to figure it out. I mean, this is his new car, right? He's only had it for what? A year. He started it with the No Prep Kings series, and now he's brought it to the list. His first list race, he lost. He didn't even make it to. He didn't even make it to 10. He raced the 10 spot and lost. Now he did, and he won, but barely. And that tells you how fast that list is, because his car is hauling.
He's got to figure it out.
Yeah, he's got work to do there. You know, for a guy that was consistently top 5 to even the best on the list. And it shows you, whether they want to admit it or not, when that show money got involved, when they were getting that street outlaw money, the car has changed.
Yep.
And you can see it. I mean, they say it's the natural progression of their cars anyway. This group of guys, and they are unique in that, because they'll bring list races, right? They bring in Oklahoma City's racing Texas or Florida or New Orleans. Most of that is bullshit. Those guys are not all from where they say they're from.
Made for TV.
It's made for TV. So that's where it gets a little fake. It's like Street Outlaws New Orleans. They're trying to build it around Kai Kelly. Kai Kelly lives in Mississippi. He ain't even from New Orleans. He was the best guy on their list. So that's where it gets a little Hollywood trying to make something out of nothing. The reality is, though, to me, the reason that I keep watching it is the way they tune their cars, and they get into it enough on the show. They try to keep, like, they'll never tell you what the gears are in their transmission. They're never going to tell you what their rear end is. They won't tell you what their setups are that way, but they're pretty open about their engines, and it's interesting to me. I like it. They don't talk about flow rates. They don't tell you what their cam grinds are. They keep things secret, but in general, at least, you get to see what these crazy big block engines, and some stroke or small blocks. The Death Trap, that's a small block Chevy in that Mustang.
Do they race at the same spot all the time, or do they switch a lot?
They switch sometimes, but I think when they're in Oklahoma City, it's pretty much the same, and it's an access road, I believe, near an airport. And that's where they race. So it is asphalt, but again, it is. They're not in danger of the police. They have permits. They have safety. What's funny about it, though, a little bit ago, before this season started, they had the origins of Street Outlaws, and they showed like how Big Chief and these guys would illegally race on the street all the time, and how they'd have to run from the cops and sometimes get busted by the cops. And he's the one who created this list. Him and Dave and Sean and those guys did this for. And Chief said before he really got involved, some of the older guys that were on the early seasons were the best. There was an old guy on there who ran an '86 Mustang GT. It was gold. Varley. They called him Varley. That must be his name, but he was horrible. But at the time, back in the day, he was the man. He was the one. He was running that show, and Chief said he was the one that got me excited about all this, was watching him kick everyone's butt. It's just, so they claim, that's what I'm getting back to. They claim that they were headed this direction anyway. That might be true, but I think the money accelerated stuff.
Funding always helps.
Funding helps. When you're racing at those speeds at that level, plays a big factor. When they did that shootout race with Chief and Gas Monkey Garage, did you watch any of that?
Yeah.
Richard's something else. It was hilarious that he didn't know the difference. He thought, we had a faster time. Why didn't we win? Because he killed you on the light. That was sad because he started celebrating. Those other guys knew. They were like, no, don't. Jumping around in them bedazzled jeans. I ain't hating on Richard.
He makes good tequila.
He makes really good tequila. 69 proof. It's good stuff. You can just see him saying it too. 69 proof. Woo. Woo. Yeah, he's cool. I don't care what anybody says. And there's plenty of people who have met him and said he's a nice guy. Obviously, he puts on a certain persona for TV. That's fine too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's a lot that goes into that, and it was funny because in earlier seasons, NHRA was threatening people because you had guys like Mike Murillo, who's a famous drag racer. He races a '89 Mustang LX called La Fonda. It's a twin turbo Mustang. They were threatening him. The NHRA said anybody who has one of our licenses who goes on that show, their license is revoked and they are suspended.
Acting kind of threatened.
They were threatened, and they were right to be threatened because no prep racing has taken off, and
it's popular.
It's very popular. It's not as big as the NHRA itself, but obviously there's something there because now all of a sudden that rule's gone. Lots of those guys have an NHRA license now, and there's a lot of no prep racing going on all over the place.
Go figure.
Go figure. Hey, money talks, right? So, yeah, it's good stuff. So let's talk about changing subjects. For people who do know me personally, know that talking to me can be exhausting because I tend to jump all over the place. I am the dog from Up going, squirrel! That's me. Right in mid-sentence. Oh, that's a pretty squirrel. So let's talk about Barry Sanders. You and I were talking about this earlier. Barry Sanders turned 50 this year. We're both Lions fans.
Barry.
He was one of the most entertaining people in any sport at any time. You know,
Incredible.
He didn't have the success in his career that someone like Michael Jordan had. You know, because a lot of people consider Michael Jordan one of the greatest athletes in any sport at any time ever. I would put Barry Sanders right there. He was on a crappy team. Well, they weren't all crappy, but he for most of his career he had a pretty weak team around him. I think that's safe to say. Weak coaching. Yes. Wayne Fontes was terrible. And he was amazing. Electric. Was there an episode of Sports Center in the 90s that didn't include him during football season? Every week he put something together that just blew your mind. And so he turned 50, which makes us feel old as well. But watching his career was a pleasure. And having his 50th birthday gives you a chance to go back and look at some of those highlights. You know, Facebook, my feed, you know, because I'm sure yours too were Lions fans. It was for his birthday. It was blowing up with highlight reel videos and well wishing and all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, Barry was the best of all time.
10 years of Barry.
10 years of Barry. And the sad part is, had he been on a good team, would he have retired at 10 years?
No way.
No way. No way. And one of the worst things about that as a fan was, and believe me, now this is post 0-16 Lions. But back in the day, we were all fed up with the fact that they kept going 9-7 and 8-8, and the Pack would win the division, and Detroit would fizzle out. They'd either not make the playoffs or they'd be gone in the first round, except for 91. Bobby Ross came in from coaching the San Diego Chargers and taking them to a Super Bowl to being this godsend of a coach that's going to come in and save Detroit. And he didn't. He helped destroy it for whatever reason. I don't know what was different in San Diego. It didn't work. For one thing, him and Barry didn't get along, you know, and a lot of this is in Barry's book, but when they started
Barry when they got to in the red zone or in the goal line.
Right. Well, they pulled him, every time they got close, they pulled him. He wasn't a part of any scoring package unless he was 30 yards plus running into the end zone. It was bad. And it wasn't, I shouldn't say, because it wasn't just Barry. There was other good players. Corey Schlesinger was one of the best fullbacks ever, I think. Again, he was another guy stuck on a bad team, but he was fantastic.
Yeah.
What was his nickname?
Sledgehead.
Sledgehead. I remember reading an article one time that in the society or in the social mechanisms of being a professional athlete, everybody's pulling up in Porsches and Ferraris, and he had like an old muscle car that didn't run quite right. A lot of times he was working on it in the parking lot of the players' practice facility. That's awesome. We need more of that. But yeah, he was good. Herman Moore was fantastic. Brett Perryman was good. Johnny Morton was good. They had other good players. It never came together.
Nope.
And then he retired in 99. Was it? I think so.
Yeah, he started in 89.
Or right after the 99 season, he retired. It was something like that. They went 9-7. They missed a kick versus the Bears. They missed the playoffs, and Barry retired. And Bobby Ross said that he didn't believe that Barry ever loved football. That also makes me hate Bobby Ross. That guy sucks. Mm-hmm. So then they try to start a new era post-Barry. They draft Joey Harrington. What did Saragusa call him? Champagne Joey?
I forgot about that.
Which, you know what? His rookie season, they put him in like halfway through his rookie season because they were horrible. And he looked okay his rookie season. It looked like there was some talent there, but he was taking a beating. And then the next year he took a beating.
Got gun shy.
And unfortunately, especially then, the macho realm of the NFL, what did Joey like to do? He liked to play piano, and he loved chocolate-covered strawberries. If you're not going to go out and have a beer with a guy like Tony Siragusa, he's not going to like you. And he didn't. And Joey's time in Detroit was miserable. Well, for one, they never had a running game, and they really haven't since Barry. They've had a couple promising guys that injury just kind of – either injury or free agency, they leave, and nothing ever comes of it. And they made some really bad decisions. Matt Millen he destroyed that team.
Yeah, he didn't help.
And the thing of it was, they weren't that good to begin with. You took a mediocre team, gave them the worst GM in the history of football. And then because the owner liked him personally, he let him run it for 10 years, even though they were losing all the time.
Oh, you're giving me flashbacks.
I know.
Depressing.
Long-suffering Lions
Matt
fans.
Patricia. Now's our time.
Matt. There's a lot riding on Matt Patricia. Well, and now you've got a franchise quarterback who's one of the best in the league, and you've still got one of the best receiving groups in the NFL.
Hope.
Last year they were the only receiving duo in football with two receivers over 1,000 yards. And Golden Tate was top 5 in almost every category, every metric. He's fantastic. He gets overlooked a lot because he's on Detroit, but he's fantastic.
This is our year.
Yeah, this is it.
Yep.
If you've ever heard a Lions fan say this is it, I think we've said it every year since when was the last one? 54?
53?
Somewhere in there. But, yeah, big-time Lions fans, and we'll be talking a lot about them when the NFL season kicks off. I wish we had Barry. Why couldn't we have Matt Stafford, Barry Sanders, and Calvin Johnson all on the same team?
Yes.
With Lomas Brown and Henry Thomas anchoring the offensive line. Because a lot of people don't talk about that, but when those two anchored the offensive line, Barry ran for over 2,000 yards. And the only request he ever made to management was to re-sign those players, and they signed them both away in the next 2-3 years. Like, how do you do that?
Wow.
We have the best running back in the league. Well, what else do we need? Well, we don't need an offensive line. That's ridiculous. We have a mediocre quarterback, but he doesn't need protection because he sucks. We'll sign Rodney Pete. That'll fix everything. Oh, Rodney Pete sucks. Let's sign Scott Mitchell. That'll solve everything. Let's give Gus Perot another try. Andre Ware, Heisman Trophy winner. Yeah, that was what. It's kind of, I don't know. That's how things went. Charlie Batch. Remember Charlie Batch?
He started good.
He started out good.
Yeah, until he tried to run over, who's it, John Randall?
John Randall. Interesting choice.
Uh-huh.
Broke his back. Yeah, when he came around the corner on a quarterback draw and lowered, John Randall squared up, lowered his shoulder, and just demolished him. Broke his back. He went limp on the field. I mean, it's just, I don't know. That's something else. But, yeah, enough about Detroit. We'll be able to talk a lot about them in a few more weeks. We'll probably mostly be pissed off, but what are you going to do? But I want to stick around with sports. So another sport we both love, MMA. They had some drama in the past week. You see that about Dana White and Brendan Schaub? Yes.
Like what, the Kicksboxer or something? What was that about?
Brendan made a comment on a Okay, so for those of you who don't know, Brendan was a former UFC fighter. He was pretty good, and he moved up in competition until he met guys he couldn't beat. And then he got knocked out a few times. And he was done fighting, essentially. It happens to a lot of guys. That's not something you hold against somebody. No. You know, and he was a multi-sport athlete. He grew up playing football. When football didn't pan out, he switched to MMA, which also many guys have done now. And he did pretty good, and then it didn't pan out. Whatever. So he says now he has a career, a second career, which is, I guess you'd call it a third career at this point. He has a third career where now he's doing stand-up comedy. He's got 2 podcasts, and he's got a gig with Showtime. Awesome.
It's working out. Yeah, it's working out for
awesome for him.
Yeah.
So he makes this analogy, or he shares this thought that right now there was some guys coming over, and he was talking about one in particular. They were coming over from a kickboxing background, and they thought they were going to wipe guys up in the UFC or in MMA, and it wasn't working out for him. And, you know, his advice to them was pump the brakes a little bit, get some more training, and then come with it. A guy who's fighting in the UFC right now, and he's actually terrorizing people in lower weight classes, thought Brendan was talking about him. And he posted it to his social media, and he posted the clip. So that's one of the detriments right now to all of this crap, is you can clip anything to whatever length you want and repost it. You don't always get what they're talking about, or you don't know what their intention was by the clip. You just get the word, like just the few words they want you to hear. And so he kind of posted a joke back, like, "Oh, you don't think we can make this transition to MMA? I'm doing pretty good."
And that triggered Dana.
Dana goes on there and he says, you know, don't listen to this moron. You don't want to listen to a tool like this. He called him a tool. He goes, the only thing Brendan Schaub could teach you is how to get knocked out. Like, he got nasty, man. Went right after the core of him. You know, he said that, don't worry about Brendan Schaub. Everyone will forget about him as soon as Joe Rogan stops having him on his podcast, because they're good friends. It was nasty, but Dana does that. You know, if he doesn't like somebody,
he's the boss.
He's the boss. You know, and they run it. I don't want to say mafia style, but mafia style. When Dana says something or thinks something, that's just how it is, and everyone can suck it. You know. However, Brandon responded, and he said, like, you know, he said. He goes, they're telling the MMA fighter, he's like, well, if you don't want to listen to me, someone with actual fight experience, go ahead and listen to a glorified kickboxing coach, a fat, bald old man who's never had a fight in his life. Do that. And so Dana took another shot at him, and unbeknownst to Dana, Brendan's talking to his friends, like the guy he does a podcast with, Brian Callahan and Joe Rogan, and he's like, look, and he said this. He's like, Dana doesn't knock it off. He goes, I'm going to unleash everything. And he goes, believe me, he doesn't want that. And he kept eluding that. He doesn't want that. And so then he did this like 15-minute video where he just basically is like, Dana, you're a dick, and here's why. He goes, you know, you're the leader of one of the biggest sports companies in America, in the world. And you have one of your guys have an off night, and you rip them a new one and call them names and tell them they're pretty much washed up versus saying, he goes, how much would it mean to that guy, that same guy, who is incredibly talented, who is young, who is on a slide, he's got a down part. What if you walked up and said, hey, we've all been there, man. Go talk to this coach, and this coach. Get back in there. We want to see you fight. Versus, you know what? You suck. Mm-hmm. And that's what Dana
kick him when he's down.
Yeah, he does that. He really does that. He will kick people all over the place. Well, the mistake Dana made, and in Brendan's response, is that he doesn't work for him. He doesn't work for the UFC. His career has nothing to do with the UFC in a way, at least where Dana has no power or influence over it. But Brendan did bring up that Dana had blocked certain fighters from being on his show when he's been able to. He's kept people from being on there, and in that way he has kind of hurt Brendan. But in this whole thing, one of the first shots Brendan took at him was, why don't you, or when you get done, when you get finished folding Ronda Rousey's laundry. And then he refers to them as Eskimo brothers. What does that mean?
I believe they've both been somewhere.
They have something in common.
Yeah.
They have a person in common. And so it gets dark, man, because then Brendan tweets this on an airplane ride, and they lose Wi-Fi service on the airplane ride. And he said, like, he tweeted it, and then he was like, man, I shouldn't have said that. You know, like he was second-guessing himself. The plane lands, he gets service back, and he had 100 and some texts.
I did hear about that.
So he's got, like, fighters, current fighters, and even UFC employees that are telling him, thank you for putting Dana in his place. Thank you for saying that. But even in all that, at the end of that tirade that he posted, he warned Dana. He said, you say one more thing, and I'm releasing all of it.
He's got some dirt.
He's got some dirt because you know what? Dana didn't say nothing. No response. It went dead quiet on his end. Now, it's funny because, you know, once you once you catch some drama like this, you look into it a little more. And one of the UFC's former fighters, Josh Thompson, he said that he believes Dana has a history of trying to hook up with fighters' wives for whatever reason. That's his shtick, his thing, what gets him going. And that made me think, like, yeah, wasn't Ronda Rousey with Travis Brown, a heavyweight contender? Like, now she's married to him. So would that have all been around the same time? Possibly. Josh kind of made it like, if the Me Too movement ever comes for Dana, he's screwed.
Pound me too.
Yeah, pound him too. Yeah, but all that stuff, you can Google Dana White, Brendan Schaub beef on YouTube, and you'll hear all about it. It's pretty crazy. So enough of that stuff. Let's. So one thing I did want to talk about too was John Cena and his Ford GT drama. That's another big thing that just happened recently.
So he sold it.
He did. So Ford made a big deal out of this, right? Because they're not making many Ford GTs. In fact, they didn't make their quota.
450?
Yeah, I don't know what their total is going to be, but I know they didn't meet it for this year, and they're going to have to make it up next year. So there's guys, like, they sold every single one and then some that they could make, and they didn't meet their orders for this year. So there's guys out there, potentially billionaires, that are waiting on their car. And so here's Cena. Cena's one of the first one to get one. And a Ford dealership contacts him and offers him an obscene amount of money to let them have it so they can resell it to a billionaire who didn't get picked. He agrees. Now, this is what I don't understand, because I don't know how much money he made. Did he make $700,000 off it or $500,000? Like, how much did he make? I know that's a lot of money. It is. To me, it would be a ridiculous amount. I wouldn't know what to do with that kind of money. But for John Cena, who makes like $50 million a year at least, that's not make you money. He's made.
No.
So why would you do that? Because you know what Ford did?
They didn't like it.
They sued him. They took him to court.
It went to court?
It went to arbitration.
They settled.
And they settled. So John had to give the money that he made to charity, and they fined the dealer an undisclosed amount of money. I mean, I just don't get it. For John,
who the billionaire was.
He's got a Ford GT. He didn't get in any trouble. I wonder how much he paid. That's but you know what, John Cena, he who knows what his total worth is now, but it's probably in the 100 million range. That's what his worth is. Maybe less, but somewhere in that range. To go through the hassle of getting a Ford GT, that was not a simple process. And like I said, there's a billionaire who didn't get one. There's lots of people who didn't get them. They were going to make however many cars, and they got like 10,000 applicants, which blew my mind because I'm like, there's 10,000 people who can afford that? That's a $500,000 car minimum with no options. It's $500 before you check a box. And to go through that process and to be picked and then turn around and like, yeah, I'll sell it. What the hell? You know, I don't get it. I mean, again, it's a lot of money. And I guess even, no matter who you are. But I do remember Michael Jordan saying once when everyone found out about his $100,000 golf debts and losses that $200,000 to him is not the same as what it is to your average person. So when you're reporting that in the news, it's not as big a deal to him. He can lose that money and walk away, smoke another Cohiba and get in his Mercedes and go home.
I'll say the billionaire writes some of his other Cena's checks.
I've seen him. He got his money back again. I could see that. Yeah, it's weird to me, mainly because I can't fathom owning something like that. But to go through the hassle of buying it and sign that contract, and Ford was very clear, not just to him and to everyone, but to the public. Harley Davidson does that with their motorcycles. If a new edition of a Harley comes out in a new color, they require you sign it's either a 12-month or 24-month agreement to not resell the bike. Wow. It's not unheard. It's not a weird practice. Yeah. It's standard when you're getting into something like that. Yeah, I don't know, man.
He didn't want it.
Yeah, he didn't think they could see him, right? Maybe his wife wanted something really nice. I don't know. Or not his wife, his girlfriend, sorry. They're supposed to get married, then they weren't, then they are, then they're not. He wants kids, he doesn't want kids. Now they're going to work it out. I don't know. It feels made for TV.
I hope it works out for him.
Yeah, why not? All right, so that was our John Cena drama. So last thing we want to talk about is just we did get some comments back, believe it or not, about our first podcast. And the one thing that I really, because I addressed some of it on social media, but one of the things I did want to talk about, because we spent some time talking about bodybuilding, and I had posted some stuff in social media. We had a comment from a guy who said that he felt that Arnold was too big to be considered aesthetic or athletic. And his assertion was that it's too big for something to aspire to. So I did not let you know, really, that we were going to talk about this. What do you think of that? Off the cuff.
Aesthetic.
Yeah. And I did talk to the guy a little bit. And I told him, I know you think that, and I guess as a kid, Arnold was larger than life. I couldn't imagine that there was a real human being who kind of looked like He-Man, you know, but he was real. But you look at who came after, you know, and I think that's the problem is though the people who feel that way, they looked at Arnold and they looked at the guys that he was against, or Lou Ferrigno and them. You think they're too big, but if you paid attention to the sport at all after, when GH and insulin came out, they got huge. Dorian Yates was huge. And then who was it after Dorian? Ronnie Coleman. Ronnie Coleman came on after Dorian. We already talked about him. And even Jay Cutler, he was 5'9", 280 pounds of muscle. I mean, Mark Bell called him SpongeBob SquarePants. You know, and it's hilarious because if you've ever seen an interview with Jay Cutler, he doesn't show any emotion almost ever. He has the same expression. He talks in a monotone voice, and he answers your questions. And that's probably why he never used to do interviews. I remember we used to think we'd watch the old bodybuilding workout videos, and we'd say, wow, Ronnie's way more entertaining than Jay. Jay doesn't really say anything. He just goes about his business. You know, but even Jay admits to that. That is him. He does just go about his business. You know, and he's still jacked.
Yep.
You know, he's not as cut as he was, obviously, because he's not dehydrated. That's not healthy when they do that. Those guys are very nearly going to pass out when they're that lean for those competitions. And the sad part about that, I know, we don't have to worry about that.
We don't look very dehydrated.
No, I look hydrated because I am. Overhydrated. But yeah, Jay's like, you think Arnold is big, and he was. I mean, he's 6-ish feet tall, 240 pounds at his competition weight. Jay is several inches shorter and 280, 40 more pounds of solid muscle on a smaller body. I mean, it's crazy. But if you have never looked at it or checked it out since, look at some of those guys. Just Arnold was the last really aesthetic Olympia. And maybe one day they'll get back there. There's some young guys, what do they call it? It's men's fitness now or something. They get to wear actual beach shorts on stage. They don't wear the little bikini things. They wear beach shorts, board shorts they call them. And those guys are built like Arnold was. The men's fitness guys have the same type of physique and very nearly, not quite Arnold size, but very nearly. And that's considered men's fitness now. Callum Von Oger, he's an Australian. You get a chance to check him out. He's pretty good. He tore his bicep and then blew his kneecap up recently in some two freak things, but he should be coming back. But those guys are pretty crazy. If you side more with the aesthetic look like Arnold's, that's what you want to look at. But yeah, I was honestly I was kind of surprised to see that, just because I thought everyone kind of felt that way, that Arnold had the look. If you were going to aspire to a look, that was the look you aspired to. Symmetrical. Had a smaller waist, broad shoulders, you know. His legs weren't so big that he had trouble walking.
Right.
He could probably still button up a shirt or at least come close. A lot of people don't know that about bodybuilders, that most of them can't. They can't button up a shirt. That's why they wear. I think Jay said he wore 5X. Everything was 5X to fit. SpongeBob.
Built like a cereal box.
Yeah. The other thing they don't talk about, when you eat 10,000 calories a day, what do you do?
Well, I can imagine.
What goes in must come out.
Yeah. Lots of litter box.
Yeah, he said he crapped like a donkey. He was at
like a bear.
Yeah, he was at the gym, and he was trying Ezekiel bread.
Good stuff.
Good stuff. He had never had it before. So he had a sandwich with Ezekiel bread, and knowing him and his diet, it was probably 4 sandwiches. And his guts weren't liking it. Never had it before. And he was in the gym trying to do his workout, and it just got worse and worse. And he said that he can't crap at the gym. I would think in that circumstance you'd make it happen.
He needs home field.
He didn't. Yeah. And he almost made it.
He's in his car?
In his car at a stoplight in Vegas in 100-degree heat. He said he crapped so much he raised up in the seat. In his favorite car, he had some sort of special Mercedes. He didn't say what it was. I'm sure it was an SLR or something, but yeah. He said he didn't want to move because he wanted to keep as much of it in his pants as possible. He said he got home and it was just like a baby right up his back. He said he had one more time like that. He was out walking his dogs, 200-pound like pit bull dogs, and he's walking them. Gets the same feeling, and they were near a construction site that had porta potties. So he goes over there, and he's trying to use the porta potty, but he can't let his dogs go. So he's holding on to the dog's leash, and the door's like halfway open, and he's in there trying to crap. It's like I could just imagine like cruising by, look in, and like, oh, Jay Cutler, and then look. Oh, hi, Jay. But he said that's the life. I mean, if you're making good money at it and that's what all you do,
that's what you have to do.
That's what you do. You eat a ton, you crap a ton, you take naps, and you work out, and that's what you do. You know, it's pretty wild. I don't know how they do it. I'm sure I also don't need to worry about ever finding out. I mean, I've eaten a lot, and I've taken some pretty big craps, so I just, I don't squat 700-800 pounds. But yeah, I got the eating down. I can do that.
You don't have to shit yourself all the time.
No, I don't. I think I could eat license plates if I wanted to. Iron gut. That's never been a problem for me. If the world ever
tiger shark.
Yeah. If Canada invades or the zombies show up, I'm ready. I can eat anything. That is no problem. Well, that's about all we got. That's 1 week. 1 week down. No. 2 weeks down.
2 weeks in.
2 weeks in. Next time, we'll talk some more about this same old crap. We're going to talk about the shows we like to watch, the sports we're watching, the celebrities we follow. Maybe if I take an interesting shit, I'll bring it up. Probably not, though.
Never shit my pants, and I hope I don't do it again.
Never. We're out of here.